Namaskar. Slight delayed start. Very profound apologies for that. And we have with us Sridhar Chityala ji. Sridhar ji, namaskar and welcome to P Guru's channel. We have a cracker of a session, sir.
Namaskar ji, namaskar. My apologies and thank you. Yes, let's get started, ji.
Yes, indeed. So we are going to start with the USAID. You know, there was an executive order probably on the first day. This is just the agenda, sir. Just a line item, so you can speak to that. So there was, I just want to set the context. On the day one, President Trump signed an executive order freezing all funding to USAID. He sent home about 10,000 employees or something like that. And all that stuff got stayed. Now, this is where things get a little murky, and I would like you to pick up from that point forward. Over to you, sir.
Great. I think you've just hit the key issue, which is two things. One is aid, which is directed towards zillions of people, which they distribute around the world, and second is laying off as part of the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 program. As far as the funding is concerned, the funding has stopped. The funding has stalled. So most of the funding, which is directed towards programs which are questionable in terms of actions, I think that has stopped. But his attempt to send people back home has witnessed a court battle which is going up and down. But right now, where it stands is that those people have not been taken back, but they have not been permanently removed either. The court has stalled the laying off of these people, Sree. So when he will not only in USAID but across various areas where he has where the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 program has recommended laying off the people, and all those programs are witnessing a court battle, and there's no resolution to that effect. There's no resolution in terms of Trump's agenda as far as the laying off of the people is concerned. But the good thing that's happened is that the funding has stalled, including to not only USAID, but various kind of programs such as even United Nations, WHO, and so on. And all those programs have stopped. But what we have witnessed is many questionable uses of the funding of these programs. I just don't believe the funding will come back, Sree. So as far as, because, in the budget that he has just presented, which has passed the House and going into the Senate, there is no funding allocated for all these types of programs, Sree.
Thank you so much. So it's good to see America getting back to accounting basics. For example, the Department of Treasury was dispersing money like there was no tomorrow. And they did not have it against any particular line item, because Congress is the body that approves spending for the Department of Treasury, and the Department of Treasury did an end run around it. I don't know if somebody is going to go to jail for this one, Sridharji, because this is how we ran up $36 trillion.
Exactly. I don't think anybody will go to jail, Sree, because the investigations will itself take a fair amount of time. It will witness its own kind of vagaries of delays. What at least one purpose, two purposes that need to be served, if at all it sees its end state. One is the misdirection or misuse of what shall I say, the funding taxpayers' funds. That's number one. Number two is vast pool of resources which were engaged in changes such as regime change, unnecessarily interfering in countries, directing money towards programs which are detrimental to the interests of various states. So, and with no accountability, this is almost like slush funds going down the drain. That's the good thing that will probably come out of this, but you may not see anybody going to jail as a result of this, Sree.
Thank you so much. And now the most important topic, Trump's tariff U-turn. And we have, let's get back to the slide deck, please, just so I didn't miss anything. Yeah, before we go to tariffs, let's take a look at LIBOR. Viewers, don't shake your head off thinking that LIBOR is not something I'm concerned with. It concerns you. It doesn't matter which part of the world you are in. LIBOR is out, SOFR is in. And why was LIBOR kicked out of many of the loan programs? The interest rate that you agreed to pay for your rental, for your home ownership, for your corporate loans, all these things were based on LIBOR rates, except America decided that in 2019, enough is enough. They kicked LIBOR out. And recently, I think October 2024 was the last contract ever written, 6-month contract based on LIBOR. All that is over as far as America is concerned. It is all SOFR. Sridharji, talk to us. What is SOFR? Why is it more realistic? And more importantly, that gravy train that the London banks were enjoying, that is gone.
Yeah, SOFR stands for secured overnight financing rate. As Sree rightly pointed out, SOFR is effectively replaced what you call as London interchange overnight borrowing rate. So why did it change? Because it is well known that banks kind of in London come together, they agree on a rate, and that rate becomes it's a collaboration between banks. And the word collaboration, I'm using it in a very loose kind of a context. People called it as collusive banks collusive rate. That's what it became. And there was a whistleblower, who basically told that, hey, these rates were arbitrary and they were being used also to, milk the system, and which probably helped some banks to make up the profit. But it was a club, and the investigations revealed, again, through the process of somebody, so always is a whistleblower who turns up and who said that this is a questionable mechanism. Now, one of the things that happened is that one of the things, as Sree rightly pointed out, a lot of this industry and what we call unsecured lending industries, whether it is credit card or whether it is auto loans, they were all banks were borrowing money using this LIBOR system, and that in turn was used to fund these loans, and which in turn, you have to reprice it, because at the end of the day, there are individual and small business borrowers who use these funds, who take loans drawn from the LIBOR funding, and then they were repaying the loans. So the mechanism was not a very fair market price discovery mechanism, and this became the root cause of this investigation, and it was decided that they will abandon. And nobody went to jail, Sree, but the story is that the system itself was abandoned, and the United States gracefully began to transition the programs, because there's several $1 trillion of loans which were getting funded out of the system. So by 2023, and I think the last contract was just recently in 2024, was exited out of LIBOR, and this secured open financial rate, overnight financing rate, was set, and that was by our US Fed, and you can get the rate every day. There's enough liquidity in the system, and being set by Fed, it became what we call a fairly transparent mechanism. The rate gets published, and it is based on a weighted average formula of the rates prevalent, and it was published, and it has now, people have transitioned, and there are consequences as a result of this, because it's a very flourishing US dollar euro trade, because it was in London or a British pound, but those trades got kind of the cross currency trades got impacted, but the funding mechanism has been established. The markets are not, the funding has not been impaired as a result, but the LIBOR as a process has seen its last transaction, Sree. But these are all schemes which were established contrary to the fundamental principles of transparent kind of rate process.
Thank you so much, sir. Viewers, stay with us for this. This is a little technical, but I want you to understand what is also happening. Sridharji, my understanding of this going away from LIBOR means something really bad for European derivative contracts, many futures and other contracts, because now they will have to find the US dollar to back these contracts. In other words, they used to do the equivalent of naked shots before. No more. They'll have to find the dollars for it. That gravy train of dollars that was making its way into Ukraine, it was making its way through USAID, it was making its way through Social Security, crazy payments to people living 200 years old. All that stuff is stopped. Tell us a little bit about the impact of all this in the finance industry of Europe.
Well, I think there are obviously, I think you have hit the nail on the head, which is effectively what has happened is that there's always, source of funds and the use of funds. You described some of the contracts which it was funding, derivative contracts that they were funding. That's the use of funds. Now, what's the source of funds? The source of funds is the LIBOR financing. That's the source of funds. Now, the source of funds, when you have the source of funds disappear as a result of these LIBOR contracts getting out of the way, there has to be alternate mechanisms established as to how you're getting those funding on the source side, on the sourcing side, so that these contracts. So there's consequential impact, notably in Europe. The question, people would have found a way to establish that model until the tariff picture came into play. Okay, now the tariff picture in itself is creating a problem, and it's also creating a problem in terms of, what would happen if some of these tariffs kind of kick in, and still this is EU, we are not talking about, this is not the UK tariffs, this is the EU tariffs that we are talking about, which has not been resolved as yet. So a combination of the EU tariffs and the combination of LIBOR disappearing is creating a little bit of turbulence in the market. So you are beginning to see the consequences of the sources of funding disappear, and there is no clear model as yet emerging as a result of this, Sree. So you are seeing some turbulence in terms of funding of all those types of programs, whether you call it legitimate or illegitimate, those programs getting impacted.
So viewers, now we come to the meat of the matter, which is tariffs. And we are going to be considering multiple country-to-country agreements also in the next slide. First, give us the overall picture. With China, United States thought that it had struck a bargain. They rolled back, I think, 140% tariffs or something of that nature. It still left, I think, 65% or something. Sir, the numbers are all your game, your data, your data. You are the man, data man. Sir, talk to us a little bit about this reversing of the tariffs. What is the method behind this madness? The next slide will have all the different countries, sir. First, let's do the overall picture. Then we go to the other different countries, including India, US. Please, first, viewers, if you have not already liked this video, please like this video. You are not going to get this information anywhere else. I guarantee you. This is done lots of days of research. Sridharji and I have been working for 10 days to come up with all these things. Over to you, Sridharji.
Well, I think the tariffs is as predictable or as unpredictable overarching picture as Trump's mind is at the moment. You go forward, you go backward. You go forward, you go backward. You go forward, you go backward. So where are we today? Barring the UK-US FTA, free trade agreement on the tariff side, which we covered to some extent at length in 2 shows prior, all other tariff programs have come to a halt. Effectively come to a halt, or they are in the negotiations phase. So you pointed out China. China was, they were at 150% to even 200% or 350%, but they eventually came down and they said that, they would try to reset it at around 50% and then basically start the negotiation process between the two countries as to, where you want to do what you want to do. And there was even, we covered news coming out of China. China has identified close to 133 line items where they would begin to take the tariffs back to zero. And there was also rumors that China would open up access to them. There are two basic problems that Trump was trying to address. One, lack of market access, and second is arbitrary tariffs in certain areas and protecting their own respective markets. So these were the two kind of trigger points for Trump to engage, and he was using, just like several of his policy programs as it related to foreign policy. He was trying to use his social media channels to say, many countries have lined up to have discussions with me, and I'm almost ready to sign deals with many countries. No, even the most what you call favored nation, which is Japan, the contracts are still pending. They have not been resolved as yet. So let's go with the countries where he believes that he would sign the deal as quickly as possible. One is Japan. Now, Japan has indicated that it would come to tariff agreement with the United States by next G7 meet. That G7 meet is sometime in June. So when the Japanese Prime Minister and the US President meet, they believe they would sign the US-Japan contract. And Japan stands somewhere in one of the top 3 countries in terms of the trade deficit. As far as China is concerned, they agreed that they have set up a mechanism between the Treasury as well as the Chinese kind of Treasury in terms of a mechanism to bring the rates down. They got themselves between 60 to 90 days, depending on how quickly they can come to a resolution. The China part of it is the big one, because the reason is there is tremendous kind of pressure from the US importers that there are not only consequential impact of inflation, but there's also consequential impact of supplies running out, and there are no alternate supplies established as well as yet. So we have to expect some resolutions on that front fairly quickly. Failing which, United States and the markets in general are looking down the barrel in terms of the consequences. The markets have factored this in, and there is also no rate reduction from the US Fed. So the markets took a hit last week, and we'll have to see how it moves forward as we move to the next week. And the 10-year rates continues to remain greater than 4.5%. The greater than the 30-year rates has crossed 5%, which means all of these things has implications in terms of the customer borrowing and paying and funding their various loans. That is China and Japan. As far as India is concerned, you hear again, bravado, which is to say that, India will basically is ready to fall over and ready to agree to 0% tariffs across the board. This is Trump's position across the board. But then the Indian team saying, no, that's not the case. We have not agreed to 0%. And it has to be negotiated. And we have a team. Those teams have just concluded and have gone back, led by Mr. 𝗍𝗲𝗍𝗍 𝗜𝗍𝗍, the Indian Commerce Minister. So we have to await the details. While that happened, there was this manufacturing shift that was expected with many US iPhones getting manufactured out of India. Then what happens? President Trump steps in again, and he says, I didn't expect Tim Cook to shift the manufacturing to India. I want him shifting the manufacturing to United States. Okay, so I'm now going to put tariffs on all phones coming out of India and coming out of course,
25%.
That also applies to China. Okay, so therefore, I'm going to apply to all the iPhones that are going to come out if it's not manufactured in United States. I just don't know what that's a battle worth for this guy, for President Trump. I think a battle that is too far. He didn't stop there. He said, hey, these all these Indians are earning money in United States and they are sending the money across to India. So we're going to put a 5% tax on that.
Remittance
so
tax.
all
Yeah.
Sorry?
Remittance tax.
Remittance tax. Yeah. Hey, you're supposed to spend the money here, so I'm going to charge you 5% tax, and that is playing itself out. Why did we mention this iPhone and remittances? This is no longer a simple case of how do you kind of reorchestrate the manufacturing, and what should be manufactured in United States, what should be manufactured outside of United States, what jobs needs to be brought, etc. Now, these tariffs are not just merely on the trade imbalances. Of course, the trade itself, US trade itself, the global trade system itself is broken, which is acknowledged by everybody, including India. Most recently, there was when I say less than 48 hours ago, there was an interview with Mr. Jaishankar, the External Affairs Minister, and he said, yes, I know, I can understand the problems that United States is going through. The trade system is broken, and this was long overdue. This is outdated, and you are beginning to see the initial kind of a rumble coming from places who are highly impacted. India is a country that is also impacted as a result of the broken system. So now to get into this core theme, we again have not seen a resolution, Sree. If at all there is a resolution, there's a resolution first that's going to come out of Japan, and then how exactly India will work this, we don't know. How exactly China will work this, we don't know. Again, Korea is coming to the United States. That's another country with big tariffs. Taiwan and Vietnam and so on, you have the trade imbalances, but in terms of the volume, they have no ability to negotiate in terms of the strength, and they may concede ground. But the big gorilla in the room is EU. The big gorilla in the room is China. And as far as the Indians are concerned, it's not material within the context, but it has consequence in terms of some of these manufacturing going into India, and so there is a kind of a consequential impact. So why this tariffs needs to be resolved? The tariffs need to be resolved because right as we speak, there is this what we call as the big beautiful budget, which President Trump has submitted through the House process, which grants tax concessions, which grants concessions to the SMEs, which grants on long-term capital gains concessions. They all need to be funded because many of the programs, including the 𝗏𝗏 programs and the government programs, have all been cut. But yet, on a 10-year basis, it is adding anything between $3 to $5 trillion in terms of the deficit, unless and until 60 to 65% of the US receipts come from personal taxes. Less than 10% of the revenues. In another show, we will give you the data. Less than 10% of it comes from corporate taxes. The source of the income for United States is payroll. So he has to bring the jobs. The impairment between receipts and expenses is somewhere close to 1.5 to 1.6 trillion dollars. I don't think United States can run such deficits any longer. So therefore, you have three kind of consequences. One is tariffs. Second is the tax concessions that the new budget is proposing, and the funding of the deficits has to have a reconciliation process. And without the tariffs, there is no way that he is going to be able to get the expenses side of the budget sorted out, Sree. So therefore, what you are going to witness is a turbulence in the markets for at least the next few months until this issue is sorted out, Sree.
Thank you so much, Sridharji. And viewers, we have a separate section where we are going to, I'm going to do the monologue. We are doing the research on that one about the costing, assuming that the iPhone is assembled and manufactured in the United States. What is the per unit price? What would it be if it is manufactured in India? also we're going to do the same thing, same exercise with some of the high-end Android phones too. So do watch that one, because this is something that we can't live without. We got to have a cell phone, our eyes open to WhatsApp or Facebook or one of those things. That's what we do the first thing in the morning. Bad habit, but we are all doing that, so myself included. So this is an important one. So do come back and look at that one from, I'll be putting it together in the next few hours. So do take a look at that. Now, the most important point. Pakistan using advocacy groups to exert influence on the US. Viewers, there are some things that Sridhar ji may reveal, he may not reveal. We didn't discuss this. I know he has told me a few things. It's up to you, Sridhar ji, what you want to reveal, what you don't want to reveal. But we are trying to make sense of how within 24 hours, J.D. Vance and Trump says that India-Pakistan skirmish is their internal matter, to Trump suddenly saying that, look, I was the one who caused this ceasefire to happen. What the heck happened in that 24-hour period? What exactly did India do to Pakistan that made Pakistan go crawling back to all their contacts in the United States? By the way, they have a lot of lobbying groups. I've already told you about macro advisory partners. Bill Burns, Victoria Nuland, and the NSA guy, I don't remember his name now. All these people were from macro advisory partners. And who run that thing? An Iranian American and a Pakistani American. What do you think these people are doing now? They're going right back to work with those people to do the lobbying on behalf of who? Pakistan and Iran. This is my guess. Prove me wrong. Sir, just to give a set, just to set the context here for viewers, that Pakistan has its tentacles deep inside the American establishment. India is just beginning. They've hired the services of Jason Miller. I don't know this person's background, so I can't say much. Over to you, sir. Tell us what is going on.
I think what is going on is that it is, I think Sree ji has very clearly drawn the line in terms of what happened during those hours when on one day you had the US top officials, including Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance, making the statement that the issue between India and Pakistan is a bilateral issue. They have nothing to, it has got nothing to do with United States. And then, overnight, at least, the US president went on the record saying that, it was all him negotiating a ceasefire and the two countries talking to each other and coming to resolution, which was refuted by India. Quite blankly, he said, no, we have not involved a third country. Their third country has nothing to do. It was the Director General of the Military Operations reaching out to us, and we striking a deal. And behind the scenes, there were a lot of kind of fluffy stuff going on, and you heard at least rumbles in some parts of the media that probably Turkey and China played a major part in terms of sending whispers to probably the State Department, which resulted in Marco Rubio picking up the phone and probably speaking to someone in Pakistan, which in turn cascaded its way into this negotiations and a truce, between the 3:30 p.m. and the 5:35 p.m. And then at around the 5:30 p.m., you saw all the drones coming back into India. So something definitely happened, which resulted in, I would say, some form of U.S. action. Whether India actually acceded to any of those things remains a question of dispute. And anyway, we are now, where we are in terms of the action between the two countries. But what is more important here is that there is work going on behind the scenes in terms of getting aid, some of the aid released into Pakistan. One of the first things that happened is that $2.5 billion, $1 billion plus supplementary extension to the loan, $2.3 billion getting released from IMF. There are also discussions going on whether there is some kind of a transit funding that can be released by the US government for the Pakistan sustenance, because their economy is in deep shambles. Now, none of these things can happen without the intervention of some of the advocacy groups which work with the governments. This is not a secret. The names may be secret. It's an open secret that there are lobby groups and advocacy groups which work behind the scenes in terms of engaging the US government and trying to influence the policies. Now, given the amount of money, we talked about somewhere between $2.1 trillion and $3 trillion flowing from Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and other nations. Now, whether Qatar and Saudi have played even a much more detailed role or much more active role when President Trump was in the region in securing some additional funding for Pakistan. So, India has not raised any kind of objections, barring the IMF. They said the IMF loan should not have been funded. Having said that, they abstained from the voting in that funding round, and India got and Pakistan got the funding as a result. So even the funding is a murky game, but we may be able to reveal some of the names by the time we probably get to the next show, who are involved still in working behind the scenes with the US government, Sree.
Thank you so much, sir. And even the IMF loan, I'm hearing, and this is a little birdie that came and whispered in my ear, what I'm hearing is that Saudi Arabia said, look, we are going to give the money to IMF. It's like a pass-through mechanism. Let it go through IMF. This is what a little birdie told me. I could be wrong. I could be right. I leave it to your wise counsel whether you want to agree with me or disagree with me. But we're having a cracker of a session. A lot of questions coming our way. Sridhar ji, if you would like to answer this one, go ahead, sir, and then we'll take the questions.
I think that I won't use the word that there was so-called backstop from one country in terms of funding this loan, but one has to give a lot of credit to Pakistanis in terms of their ability to I don't know what's the right word, Sree, but their ability
master beggars, sir, master beggars.
I don't know. I think fudge information would be probably more appropriate. But anyway, I think I withdraw those words. The story is that they have the ability to influence people. They have been masters at this game in terms of, to give credit to them. Doesn't matter whichever way it is. They will tell you one day, we shot down 25 planes and everything came crashing. And the next day they will say, oh, my entire Air Force is wiped out and, I'm in deep debt. And then they get the money and they say, hey, we are going to be paying these terror groups to rebuild because they have lost a lot of their people and they have been impacted. So they don't discuss about the use of funds as to where they're going to direct the funds, except to say that the economy is they are very badly impacted. What did they do, Sree? I mean, if they had such a kind of a treacherous economy and consequences as a result of this war with India, kind of giving a very stringent punishment to the Pakistanis. The general gets, or the head of the army, he gets promoted to field marshal. He is rewarded for, an outstanding success of the war. They don't talk about the economy, but on the contrary, they go to Saudi Arabia and get back-end funding for Saudis. Saudis were in Pakistan during that period, to do the back-end funding for some of the things that they were using. For example, Turkish drones. It doesn't come free. When you have loads and loads of flights coming and dropping those drones in Pakistan right in the middle of the war, plus other kinds of things that they were drawing. So they know how to game the system, just like the Chinese. There's nothing transparent in terms of their budgets, but it's fairly clear their economy is in deep trouble. The data is spudged, but they have secured funding both from Saudis as well as from the IMF. They are trying to get additional funding from the US government in terms of a stopgap, indicating that if US doesn't, then they have problems. So they're not directly doing the discussions. They're working with groups which know how to work with President Trump. Some of the names include the former advisors of President Trump supporting Pakistan.
Very true, very true, very true. Okay, another thing that another little birdie came and whispered in my ear. 22nd April, Pahalgam incident happens. These rascals, these scoundrels, these crooks of Pakistan, they knew that India would hit one of the terror bases. They didn't know which one of those 9 or 13 that got hit. So you know what they did? They moved all the real terrorists out of these places to some other places, and they put innocent kids there. Unfortunately, the kids who died, including, I'm told, children in one mosque, and women and girls in that Jaish-e-Mohammed mosque. These were all innocent people who were put in their place, and the real terrorists are still out there. So what? Bring it on. India is ready. India has been very aggressively flushing out these terrorists in its own camp. India has this 0.5 thing to deal with, and that is being dealt with on a war footing. That's where things stand. I'm not trying to sound jingoistics here, guys. This is the truth. You can go and look at all the data that's available in OS Int, and you will see what I am saying. It will back it up. So let's take some questions now. Thank you, 𝗟𝗘𝗙𝗘𝗏 for becoming YouTube member. Krishna Kishore wants to know, is the income tax limit to 150K gone for now? Did Trump make a deal with DeepSeated already?
Well, I think as the big beautiful budget, the BBB, includes a significant kind of tax cuts. It has to be approved by the Senate. It's not yet been approved by the Senate. Once it is approved by the Senate, then it will become a law and it will go for signature to President Trump. So let's wait until, I think there will be some compromises, but given House has signed off by how many votes? 2 votes. They won the day with 2 votes. The majority is thin. And they won by 2 votes, and then it has gone to the Senate. The House has made a plea. Hey, this is Trump's agenda, and please, Senate, get this passed and send it to Trump. Don't come in the way of the agenda getting throttled at the Senate. So let's wait and see, and we may see the end. We may see the what we call the light very soon in terms of these cuts.
Yes, indeed. Vasu Iyengar wants to say there was a lot of initial excitement about Doge saving up to $2 trillion. What is the current assessment of savings to the budget? I looked up the number. It's 180 billion. I think they have stopped updating it for good reason. Well, Sridharji will explain why.
No way. I think that see, a lot of numbers get thrown. I think this 2 trillion was 2 trillion included some of the funding. They are not purely the savings part of it, but you will begin to see, some of the components of the 2 trillion being taken out as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, as part of the money that was being on the clean energy, the green energy, as well as the climate accord programs. You will see a significant amount of cuts, and not purely as a result of Dodge, but also as a result of some of the policy differences between the two governments. So as she rightly pointed out, on the efficiency, which is what you call as the government efficiency programs, that part of it is very insignificant relative to the 2 trillion numbers. And I think it's probably less than 10% or close to 10% of that number. But it's more the funding that will get throttled as a result of the budget changes that are kind of creeping in. So the number may eventually come down to, as Sree pointed out, somewhere not even 180, probably close to $120 billion. But the sources of funding, which is the U.S. balance sheet or the U.S. government funding from the expenditure side, you will see those programs getting cut, Sreeji. There is no doubt about it. U.S. aid is one of the big beneficiaries, but big numbers, $200 billion, $300 billion, $500 billion were allocated for some of those big programs, and that is gone as far as the next 4 years is concerned.
Thank you so much, sir. Next question, Srivaru wants to know, what about our gold in England? Sridharji, do you have any update? I think one tranche is still pending, if I remember correctly.
Yes, one tranche is still pending, and the gold is making its way back to Fort Knox. I think everybody is very keen to have their gold in their own tent rather than in a central tent, all as a result of suspicion creeping in terms of what the consequences are as a result of the tariffs.
Yes, indeed. Kalyan Ram Ganti wants to know, what is the progress of the India-US bilateral trade agreement? You just heard from us. I think we already answered this one. So let's go to the next question. Arvind wants to know, Sree, how do Americans view Dr. Christine Fair? She features in many channels here. Is she a credible voice locally in the United States?
No, I think that folks, the last 4 years plus has witnessed most parochial, one-sided battle in the US media. If you are you're woke, you listen to the woke channels, and vast number of them are. If you are right, then you listen to very few right channels that are existent in United States. So there is no balanced view in United States in terms of which is the right place where you get objective piece of information. Often the data is very fudged, and the media is unhesitant in terms of dishing out information based on your perceptions and based on your advocacies, rather than the media's job of objectively disseminating information. Is Dr. Christine Fair a highly visible voice or a highly influential voice? The answer is no.
Next one, please. Satyam wants to know why so many layoffs in the IT industry. You know what is happening? Hiring is in peanuts.
Well, it's very, very simple, which is namely that there is also there is questions around what percentage of budgets are being allocated for developmental programs and how much of it is going to be passed on to the IT side, be it domestic or overseas. So there's a flow-on effect. What are the issues? What are the headline issues? Tariffs is one of them. Second, if large amount of work is outsourced, whether they will become part of, though initially services were off the mark in terms of tariffs is concerned, there's question marks around whether the tariffs will creep into services. Until there is clarity around this, then you're not going to see movement in the IT jobs. Even in the mega industries or Mag 7 or Magnificent 7 industries, you are seeing, barring Meta and to some extent Netflix, etc., you are beginning to see the consequential impact on the revenues, be it Amazon, be it Microsoft, be it Apple, be it Alphabet, and so on, including NVIDIA, because there are restrictions placed on what they can do with countries which are in this tariff list. So as a result, you are beginning to see the consequences of IT job cuts in the immediate future.
Sahil, thank you so much. Are there talks going on for Su-57 with Russia? I see tweets. I think Doval is going to Russia next week or something like the next few days. And two things that will be discussed, I am told, is one is S-500 and also the Su-57. This is what I am told, sir. You can correct me.
No, I think that let's just wait and see. I think there's a much deeper strategic partnership India and Russia are looking at, especially based on the success that India achieved in the most recent Operation Sindoor. And also many of the Russian stuff worked, and Indians know how to work with the Russian platforms, including BrahMos missile. There's a lot of export orders, I believe. So I think that you will see more truth, more discussions, and more action come out. And I think Russia itself was very impressed with the performance of its weaponry in the most recently concluded, or I don't think it's concluded as yet, because they said it's a pause rather than a termination. But the Russian equipment worked very effectively based on all the stuff that India has done with those platforms. So I think the strategic discussions continue. I think India got what it wanted in the first few days of President Trump in terms of its weaponry list from United States. And I think now they will pursue the strategic direction And I think India may use the trade discussions as a talking point, for getting additional stuff if President Trump tries to negotiate very hard.
Vasu Engar wants to know, tariffs are essentially a consumption tax for the US consumer. Why not scrap income tax and move to a flat consumption tax?
Well, I think that is what they're moving. He is attacking the issue in two ways. One is he is trying to reduce the personal tax, increase the limits, and he's also giving benefits, flow-on benefits to the SME, which is the engine of the US economy. Then, if he wants to move to a pure consumption tax, he still has to fix the large source of income for United States is from the personal, for what you call as the payroll taxes and personal taxes. So that happens only when you have large pools of employment happening in United States. It doesn't happen when you have large pools of employment for the US products outside of United States. I think we gave in the early days, for example, in the auto manufacturing sector, we gave line item of data which shows what percentage of cars purchased by US consumers in United States is produced in United States. About 30 to 32% is the lowest across the manufacturing. Many of them, up to 50%, is manufactured outside, where probably Mexico, where some of them in China, but vast part of it is Mexico, which is Chinese-funded auto factories, which was the largest cause of 1.2 trillions. 1.2 trillion was the number that we mentioned between China, Canada, and Mexico of the $3.2 trillion imports that United States did, and vast amount of it is in autos and retail, and also in the energy industry and chemical industry. So therefore, I think that what he's trying to address is, how do you boost the revenues? The revenues can be only boosted, when you have receipts coming into the US balance sheet through payroll. But if you don't have a significant growth in the payroll, then it's not going to happen. Concessions only give spending, and US is still one of the largest. US retail makes up about $8 trillion of spending, one of the largest consumers in the world. So I don't think the issue is around a straight consumption tax, but it's also around, how do you fix the revenues by increasing the jobs in the United States.
Thank you, sir. Next question, please. We have some information on the taxes. I will give it after this question, sir. Jason Bright wants to know, can the USA use its tax code to provide a tax refund for each mobile phone made in the US to cover the extra cost? Trump will be doing this with cars made in the USA.
Let us wait and see, how this plays out. That Trump has not, for semiconductor industry, for the energy industry, then for steel, some concessions have been given, but it is not right across the full list. So we'll have to wait and see how he's going to do it.
So we have some information about direct taxes. The direct taxes total is $4.26 trillion. It includes individual income tax, payroll tax, corporate tax, estate and gift taxes, and about 96 to 97% of the total federal revenue. Now, on the consumption taxes, it is total of $210 billion, includes excise taxes, tariffs, custom duties. Share is about 4% of the total federal revenue. So these are just numbers that we wanted to share to you viewers. This is a huge mountain to climb for Trump. I know most of us are like second guessing what he's trying to do or what he's going to say. Loyalty, as far as Trump is concerned, is a one-way street. Everybody expects to be loyal to him, but the reverse doesn't seem to happen. That's one problem. And I don't know how that's going to be solved by those who want to feel loyal to him. I'm being very honest, sir. I'm an independent person. I've seen how Rudy Giuliani staked his personal reputation, and then now he's in a $60 million hole. What have you done for your friend, Trump?
that's the number, the $4.26 trillion. What has not been put is the expenses. Okay. I think it's roughly about 4.9, and 7.2 is the expenses. The gap is somewhere between 1.3 to 1.6 trillion dollars between that's the deficit on the revenue to expense side. And this is the number that we have been saying. Vast part of it is locked in payroll taxes and in individual personal taxes. So unless that part of the number is fixed, right, and that cannot be through tax hikes because he's doing tax cuts, only more jobs can add to that number. You are not going to fix the receipt side of the balance sheet. Now, if you continue to kind of spend the way you have spent, that is the reason why, Sree, I feel very confident that many of these dodgy programs or the Dodge programs may get cut on the funding side, without worrying about, if you know funding, you got to get rid of the jobs anyway. So the story is that that's the way they're going to deal with it. And many of the pet programs that we had seen, they will all get cut. And that, by the way, that's the way they were funding even all these illegals. You had more than 4 trillion illegals who came in during that particular period, and they were being given money left, right, and center, through various ways from within the government budget. So I think consumption tax, to the previous question, consumption tax will not just solve the problem, because the volume is not just there in terms of converging. The only way he can do it is the number that I will stand to correct myself, but I'll give you a rough number. Close to $525 billion is the estimated benefit that United States is likely to receive if the tariffs settle somewhere between 10 and 15% or 15 to 20% from the current 5% tariff. That's the current kind of the base rate that is prevalent. If he advances further, that's the number that they're looking at. But we don't know whether they will be able to achieve that number, but that's the number that they're looking at, Sree, as we speak.
Thank you so much. What a fantastic session. Viewers, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Sridhar will be back next Sunday around the same time as today. Namaskar, sir.
Namaskar. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.